Imagine walking to work, and suddenly, the background noise stops. The cars and the footsteps are still there, but they're drowned out by something new. You look at the commuter next to you and hear their exact current thought. Rather than hearing audible voices, you experience raw, unfiltered intention. You feel the exhausted dread of the barista handing you coffee, the sudden jealousy of a friend, and the half-second judgment of every stranger passing by. While hearing others is terrifying, the realization that they can hear you is worse. Every tiny, hateful impulse, every embarrassing memory, and every random, violent scenario the brain generates is now broadcast to everyone around you. The world didn't descend into immediate violence. Instead, society froze. Everyone stood completely still, paralyzed by an undeniable honesty that humanity was never designed to handle. Under normal conditions, the human brain functions with a cognitive filter. It intercepts a chaotic mass of raw emotions and edits them into socially acceptable speech before a single word is ever spoken. When that filter shatters, basic interaction becomes impossible. Small talk like, "How are you?" feels absurd when the answer is already visible. Sarcasm turns dangerous, and flirting fails because the underlying insecurity is stripped bare. Comedy died out almost instantly. Humor relies on the sudden release of unspoken social tension, but when the audience feels the comedian's anxiety and the comedian feels the audience's boredom, surprise disappears. Arguments became unbearable. It is impossible to maintain a position when your brain involuntarily recalls an embarrassing failure or a moment of deep self-doubt, projecting that vulnerability directly to your opponent. Human connection relies on a shared agreement to ignore our first thoughts. Without that protective layer, the social structures of civilization began to dissolve. Forced authenticity destroyed the internet overnight. Social media platforms went dark as people realized they could sense the deep misery hiding behind a filtered photo or the insecurity driving a motivational post. The allure of leadership vanished. Citizens could now hear the immediate greed, fear, and human frailty behind every political speech. The mystery that allowed for celebrity and authority was replaced by a reality of ordinary, often desperate people. Romantic relationships struggled to survive the constant emotional noise. Human feelings are naturally inconsistent, shifting from love to irritation and back again within seconds. But now, every passing whim was perceived as a direct emotional attack. In the past, those fleeting moments of doubt or annoyance faded away quietly. In a transparent world, they caused permanent psychological damage. Even the healthiest bonds snapped when temporary thoughts were treated as permanent truths. Global systems and economies were built on the management of intention. When that intention became visible to everyone, the trust required to keep those systems running completely collapsed. At a biological level, the brain identifies no structural difference between reality, imagination, or fear. Because it cannot categorize its own chaotic output, every intrusive thought broadcasts as a planned action, causing terror in everyone around them. Crowded cities turned into zones of psychological screaming. The sheer volume of thousands of minds, each processing fear, desire, and stress simultaneously, triggered global spikes in panic attacks and total mental breakdowns. Certain professions became emotionally devastating. Therapists were forced to absorb the hidden despair of every patient, while doctors and hospitals were crushed by the constant, silent terror of the dying. The transparent mind shifted the burden of judgment from a person's chosen actions to the involuntary mental noise they never chose to have. Humanity began to condemn itself for thoughts it could not control. To survive the noise, humanity turned towards total mental suppression. Achieving a blank mind became a global obsession, with entire communities isolating themselves to practice the art of thinking absolutely nothing. The social hierarchy shifted away from physical beauty or wealth. The most powerful people on earth were now those who had mastered their own minds, people like meditators and artists who could remain in a silent, impenetrable flow state. Millions fled the cities, seeking forests and mountains where the presence of other minds couldn't reach them. They chose physical isolation over shared consciousness. In this world, the most valuable luxury wasn't money or status. It was the ability to have a single, private thought without anyone else listening. The generation born after the shift never learned the skill of hiding a thought. They confess their feelings directly and ask uncomfortable questions without hesitation, a level of transparency that older generations find jarringly fearless, simply because these children have no concept of a secret. But this openness came with a cost to human imagination. Historically, great ideas required a period of quiet, private incubation. Without that inner world to grow in, original creativity began to decline. This global silence reveals the hidden purpose of the internal filter. Without the protective shield of privacy, we are together, yet more alone than ever.